is Donna from Olivia and Marie Create, and I'm back again today to talk to you about how to get nearly perfect seams and points in your quilting. Okay, normally I'm not necessarily a perfect seams kind of girl. You can see behind me I'm working on this great improv quilt, and I really love just sort of cutting the fabric up randomly and doing sort of wonky bits. But if I'm going to do a traditional block, I like the seams to sort of match, and in spite of the fact that I've been sewing for like 40 years, I can't seem to sew a straight seam or get them to match. Now, I tried pins, but for me they don't work. I find that they sort of distort the fabric when you put the pins in, and the fabric kind of slips around, and I'll tell you why. So I'm going to share with you the very first quilt block I ever made. So I don't know if you can see up close and personal, none of these seams are matching at all, okay? And the reason is I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a Scooby. I just discovered modern quilting online, ordered a bunch of fabric, and started cutting it. I found this pattern that I really liked. Instead of being like a normal person and just cutting up squares and just doing really simple patchwork, I found this card trick pattern, and I tried to do it. And it failed miserably. So then I went in search of a way that I could get the seams to match up. I started actually trying to teach myself. I suddenly realized, oh, there's a way to match these up, I'm sure, because you can see they're all really wonky donkey. So, and then I discovered glue basting, Elmer's glue basting, and I have never looked back, and I'll show you. After I made that, I remade the block, and I wanted to make it a little bit bigger because it was quite small in comparison to the other blocks in the quilt, which I'm still planning to put together someday. But I didn't have enough red fabric, so I just sort of invented a little border to go with it and kind of emphasize it. You can see by comparison to the other quilt block, and my camera, remember, I hopefully moved the other quilt block out of the way so I can't hold them up next to one another. But you can see the points are very much better. They're very much more aligned, and I want to share with you how I do that. Okay, today it's really simple. So like I said, this is for I'm putting this on Instagram as well, because this is for the Instagram IG Quilt Fest prompt of your favorite tip. So what I'm going to show you, I'm doing a bunch of these half square triangles for my Gypsy Wife quilt along. And so what I'm going to show you first is if I want half square triangles, because they're on the bias, it's a little bit tricky to get them lined up. And like I said, I can't sew a straight seam to save my life. So what I'm going to show you first is how to just do a normal seam. You know, there are no intersecting seams or anything, just a normal seam like this. We're going to just sew this together. And so what you do is you get Elmer's glue. For my friends in the UK, you cannot use PVC glue, or other parts of the world, you cannot use PVC glue, okay? It does not have starch in it. Only Elmer's glue has starch. But if you're in the UK, I know you can get this on amazon.co.uk. The tip I bought from Alyssa Lickner at Pile O Fabric, and I'll put a link in the comments below so you guys can check it out. I don't know if she still has the same one. I forgot to check it before this, but I'll check it and see, and I'll put some links in. I know that there's someone else, Sharon Schomburg's daughter, whose name I can't remember at the moment, who has a shop, or used to have an online shop, who also does tips like this. They're very inexpensive. I think this cost me like $7 a few years ago, and they're very lightweight. So you take them all apart when you need to clean them. You can see I just recently cleaned this one. You take it all apart and put it back together again, and it's brilliant. It lasts forever. This lasts forever. Okay, so, but if you get really fired up when you watch this video and you don't have this Elmer's glue tip, you can just use the tip that came on the thing, because that's what I did. Just be really careful because you don't want to get too much glue. Or you can even use, you know, like your kids have a glue stick, or you might even have a glue stick in your desk. You can use a glue stick, because I used that until I could get this. Okay.
Translation for the UK, Pritt stick.
You can't use a Pritt stick. You got to use an Elmer's glue stick, right? Pritt stick doesn't have the starch. Thank you, cameraman, for helping me out with that. Okay. So now he's freaking out because I keep saying, I'm going to do this, and then I come back up to you, but I'm definitely going to put the glue now. So all you do,
One moment.
zooming in so you guys can see. I have to get the glue down.
Camera's ready.
Okay, so I'm going to do 3 dots on this, right? Now, don't make them too big, because if you make them too big, it's gonna stick too much. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting them in place. Now you have to set that, right? That's not just gonna stick on its own. So what you need is a very hot, very dry iron. So I have it maxed out, but I'm turning off my steam. It has to be a dry iron. I have a setting here where I can turn off my steam. So make sure you have your steam turned off. I once accidentally bought an iron that you couldn't turn the steam off, so I ended up just leaving the water out. And then all you do is hold it down for a few seconds, right? And give it a few seconds to set. Now, what you can do, I have one of these nifty little things. I think most sewists have these. You can take this and put it on a quarter. You see, you want your 1/4 inch seam there. And you can hold it in place. Can you see this, cameraman, that I'm holding this down on the fabric?
Right, wait, backwards. Thank you, Mom.
And you can see that I'm holding this down on the fabric at the 1/4 inch seam mark. And you can pull it back and have a look and make sure that it's where you want it. And on a straight, there's nothing special on the other side of this, so we're not too worried about the seam allowance. But when we start to sew together this other one, that will be really critical. Okay, so that's all you do. And you can see that it is just pretty much stuck there. Now, if for any reason you made a mistake, and I'll demonstrate this more here because I probably make a mistake the first time, all you need to do is just pull it apart. And you can re-glue, right? You can keep re-gluing to your heart's content. I usually set a rule to myself. If I'm trying to match up a point, if I can't get it in about 3 glues, it's not going to get any more perfect, and I don't mess with it too much more. Okay, so once they're glued, you need to sew them together, and then after you sew them together, you're going to, these two I glued earlier, and I was going to show them, and in the haste to get ready for the live, I completely forgot to sew them together. But once you're done sewing them together, they're stitched in place, and you need to take the glue, you need to open them up, because I need to open them up because I always press my seams open. Sorry, cameraman. I always press my seams open. If you press your seams to the side, you don't need to worry about taking the glue out. What will happen when you wash the quilt? What will happen when you wash the quilt is the glue will just come out. Now, if for any reason you put too much glue and they get a little bit stiff, or sometimes if you got like a bunch of seams meeting in one place, there was a lot of glue there and it's a bit stiff, all you need to do is get a little spritzer. I use a spritzer on my iron and spritz it with water and then iron it dry, and then that softens back up again. The only time I've ever had a huge impact with the glue was when I was hand quilting. If you're hand quilting, it can be a little bit stiff to get your needle through the spots where the glue is. But otherwise, the machine just seems to sort of glide over it, and you don't really need to worry about getting the glue out before you quilt or do anything with it. Okay, so let me show you. So that's how you just do an easy, normal one. Let me show you this one, because this is where the glue basting tip really comes into its own. So I've got these 2 rows of half square triangles, and I want to sew them together. And of course, I want them to kind of line up as closely as I can, right? So we're going to try to line these up here. So what I do is I have the glue, the place where I'm gluing closest to me. So I've pulled this up. This is closest to me. Now, the first thing I want you to be aware of is you need to be aware of which is going to be the top and which is going to be the bottom in terms of sewing, which is going under the needle first. If this end is going under the needle first, we're going to add some extra glue dots. We're not just going to do the glue dots in here to sew the 2 pieces together. We're going to add some extra glue dots to keep these open. Okay, now, even if you're doing it to the side, you want to add extra glue dots because you want to keep them like this. You don't want them to go to get turned the wrong way and stitched down the wrong way. That will mess you up. So what I do first is I go underneath, and I know this is my top. I'm going to go put this end under the needle first. So I'm going to put just one tiny little dot right there. Okay, and I'm going to leave that. I don't do both sides because that side's going against the with the grain under the needle. You'll see when we get over there. Okay, now this one I'm going to put 2 dots because there's a dot there. There's a flap there and a flap there. If you can see that, I'm putting 2 dots. And this one I'm putting 1 dot, and that is it for underneath. Now, we're just gonna leave those because the steam when we're doing all the rest will be fine. Okay, now what I do first is I focus on the center and then go outward. So I'm gonna focus on these here, and I'm gonna put a dot on either side. And then I'm going to see how I'm holding. Let me just grab scissors. Hold on one sec. I just realized there's a thread here and that's kind of impeding my view. I'm holding it so that the seams are lining up. And I'm gonna line it up as best I can. And then I usually kind of pick it up and you can see if they're lined up really well there. Okay. Then I'm gonna go on to the next pair. Can you see this, cameraman?
Yeah.
Don't want to block it with my hand. And do the same thing. So then I'm gonna get them kind of lined up. In this instance, because I'm really just focused on the point, getting the seams to match up, I'm not really putting, you don't need glue in between. I might put a dot of glue at the front, at the top and at the bottom, but I'm not going to do any in between other than next to these seams. Okay, and again, you're kind of nesting them together. And then, before I put the glue on the ends, I'm going to check them. So I'm going to press them in place, just hold it down. If you move it around, the glue can cause the fabric to shift until it really sets, because it takes a few seconds to set. So just sort of pick it up, really do pick it up and put it down. Now, this is where you really want to check. So you can go, like I said, with your 1/4 inch thing, and you can pull it out, and there you have it. You can see that those are matching up really, really nicely. At a 1/4 inch. Now this one's coming unglued, but I think it's matched. That's also matching up really nicely. So I'm happy. I'm very happy. And so we're gonna go. If I wasn't happy, I thought I would be able to show you, because that's the first time I've ever gotten them perfectly. On the first try. What?
So,
is my hand in the way?
can't see what you're doing there. There we go.
Okay. Right, and one there. So I put one at the top here, and I put one at the bottom here, in addition to the ones I put on the actual seams where they're joining that I want to make them. Now, I want to just say one quick word. If you're working with a different kind of fabric, either a piece of Liberty Tanalon like this is, which is, it's kind of light. Any sort of voile or lighter fabric, sometimes it won't stick the first time. You may have to go in and do it again. That one stuck the first time, but it looks like it's a little bit off. So I'm just going to take it off and do it again. If you can, it's better for a Liberty one, a piece of Liberty, if you put the glue onto the other fabric, the quilting fabric, if you're joining it to quilting fabric. And unlike the quilting fabric, I can actually feel that came through on my finger just then. Also, it's also slightly tricky if you have a really open weave fabric. Now this is a more like Essex linen, and it's not as open, but if you have a really open weave linen type fabric, you'll get the same thing where it'll kind of soak up the glue, so you may have to go back in 2 or 3 times before it actually sticks. Just persevere. Okay, so now we're going to move over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew this seam really quickly. Not that you need to watch me sew, but I just need to be boring for you otherwise, just to sit there and stare at the ceiling while I sew this. But can you pass me that little tool that I was using? There we go. Okay, I use this because it really helps me keep my seam straight. I use this to press through. And this is it. We're just going to... Can you zoom in? You know what? I think it might be better if you had less light over here. There. How's that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Good. Right. Off we go. We're off to the races. I am sitting at an angle here, so it's a little bit tricky. I hope like I said, at the best of times, I am not so great at sewing a straight seam. You see I got my seam guide going here, and I still kind of mangle them sometimes. And the pressure of sewing live may get to me. Right. Okay, and let's go back over to the machine. I'm going to take this with me because it's really important. You ready?
Drop the camera.
Don't drop the camera. Okay, let's take my leader off. Now remember I said, because I want these seams pressed open, I'm going to want to press this seam open. So I need to somehow open this up, get rid of this. So all I'm doing is taking my little stylus, and you can see it's not a sharp, it's just a knobby, and I just run it through there. And I remember where all my glue bits are because they're right next to the center, the seams, where the seams meet. And I just, can you see that, what I'm doing, or is my hand blocking it?
No, we got some of it.
It can be sometimes quite hard to do, and I will tell you, when you're trying to do your seams open, sometimes what happens is you'll think, oh, the seam's really wonky when you start pressing it open, and then you realize it still hasn't completely come unglued. So you want to just get your fingers in there, get your little digits in there, and pull it open so you can get a nice flat seam, because that would ruin the point. Now don't worry if when you're doing this, because it sometimes happens, don't worry if these side seams come undone, because that's a thing anyway. Sometimes people undo the seam up to this point on purpose. So don't worry if that happens. You'll be fine. It won't hurt anything. This seam I see is slightly uneven, but hey ho. Okay, so now I always set my seams. So I'm going to set it first. And then I'm going to open it up and press it so you guys can see, and then we will be done. And I didn't quite get, sorry, my hand's blocking, still new to all this. We will be done here. Okay. Oh, cameraman. I think you just dropped the camera. Very professional outfit we got going here. Okay, it's okay. It's not that critical. Any quilter probably knows how to press her seams open. She doesn't really need to see that much. Well, maybe you do. Who knows? Who knows? But not that exciting. Okay, I would now change this to steam and go back to my steam setting and spend a little quality time with this. But I'm going to show you the finished article. Here we go, cameraman. So as you can see, I was a little bit slapdash with one of them. This one, it didn't quite, the seams matched up, but my point's not that great. But I think that had to do with my cutting. But you can see this seam is perfectly matched. These seams are all pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. Some of my cutting is a bit slapdash, so the points aren't that sharp. But hey, I'm calling this done. It's going in a big quilt, and if you can't see it from 3 feet away, then it doesn't count, right? So that's my favorite tip that I use for quilting. I could not get on without it, and I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I will definitely read all your comments, and I will definitely come back and give you an answer. I will, if you have any questions for now, if there's anybody there, I'm not looking at the screen, cameraman, so I think it's covered up by the tripod, but can't see if anyone's there. But if you're there, you could pop a comment in the and I'll answer it, but a question and I'll answer it. But anyway, I hope this is useful for you. I find this really useful. If you have any questions about the tip, be sure to check the comments and the show notes below, and I'll put the information about where you can get the tips. And if you have anything else, just drop me a line and ask me. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. In the comments, I'd be really grateful if you would tell me the time that you would like to come along and watch these videos. I keep saying 5:30, but it ends up always being more like 6 o'clock before I ever get started. Ish. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I need a better time, a different time. But then I thought, if you have a better time, if there's a great time for you, because it'd be great if you could be live on these videos and give me some comments or some feedback or some questions. So drop a comment in the box and tell me what would be your favorite time. And make sure you include your time zone, because I'm in the UK, so my time zone is different to yours. And I think the other day I said, oh, I'm going to be doing it at 5:30 UK time, which is 3:30 in East Coast time. Totally wrong. It is not. And I grew up on the East Coast, so why I got mixed up, I do not know. It was the pressure and the panic of being on camera. But drop a note. Also, drop a note and let me know, have you ever tried this? And tell me how it works. And if you already knew about this tip or you had no idea. Anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and press the button on the bell so that you will get a notification the next time I go live, which will be tomorrow, sometime between 5:30 and 6:30, until I hear from you a better time. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.